Right, open it to Psalm chapter 95. While you're looking around, let me give you a little bit of an introduction. You know, it's 95. If you had a new King James Version of the Bible, you'd actually find the title is for chapter 95. And the title would be a call to worship and obedience. So that's what we're going to explore today. We're going to explore worship. And I want to think of worship in terms of its substance. Every one of you has a personal style in just about everything you do. You pick certain clothes off the rack when you go to the store. You make certain food choices when you go to restaurants or when you're grocery shopping. What I want to talk about is the substance of your worship. What you're doing with God. In chapter 95 of Psalms, answers two questions, and we're going to explore both of them today. Answers the question, why are we to worship God? And answers the question, how are we to worship God? So before we read from Psalm chapter 95, if you bow your heads with me, I'd love to open it in prayer. Gracious God, we are thankful for this opportunity to be in your house. We ask that you be with us through the rest of today's service, that you be with us, of course, throughout the week. We ask that as we read your word and we study it, that you bless it and you add it to our wisdom and to our life and to our soul. In Christ's name we pray. So Psalm chapter 95 says, "Come, let us sing for joy to the Lord. Let us shout aloud to the rock of our salvation. Let us come before him with thanksgiving and extol him with music and song. For the Lord is the great God, the great King above all gods. In his hands are the depths of the earth, and the mountain peaks belong to him. The sea is his, for he made it, and his hands formed the dry land. Come, let us bow down and worship. Let us kneel before the Lord our Maker, for he is our God. We are the people of his pasture, the flock under his care. Today, if you hear his voice, do not harden your hearts as you did at Meribah, as you did that day at Massah in the desert, where your fathers tested and tried me, though they had seen what I did. For 40 years I was angry with that generation. I said, they are a people whose hearts go astray, and they have not known my ways. So I declared on oath in my anger, they shall never enter my rest." Two questions. Why are we to worship God? How are we to worship God? Let's tackle the first question of why are we to worship God? I hope that for all of you that already believe, that already are saying Jesus Christ is my Lord and Savior, that you have a personal answer to this question. I hope, above all hopes, that as you're walking your walk daily, not just on Sunday, but the rest of the week, that this question is because you have a personally significant answer to this question for you. But what I want to do is I want to point out 4 reasons from this chapter that you could use as the basis of your personal answer to the question, why are we to worship God? First, from verse 1, God is the rock of our salvation. It's interesting to me because this is Old Testament, so this is pre-Jesus, but the idea of God being the rock of our salvation is being set right here, as well as in many other places. We know now that the story is finished about Jesus and about what he did on the cross for us and what he did on the cross for everybody, regardless of whether they're in this room, in this town, anywhere on this planet. He's the rock of our salvation. Our salvation is dependent upon His grace. And so, one of the reasons that we could be worshiping God, should be worshiping God, is because through Him we're saved. Through His grace, we are saved. Through what Jesus did on the cross for us, we have a way to Him and we have a way to heaven. So God is the rock of our salvation. Second, from verse 3, God is the great King above all gods. Throughout the Old Testament, Israel had problems with false gods. The first time I read the New Testament from start to finish, I couldn't help but notice. I was telling people that I ran into on Sunday and then I ran into in random conversations. The Old Testament looks like this recurring thing. Israel does something wrong, God punishes them, they get the message, and they come back to God, they stay there for a while, rinse and repeat. To me, when I first read it, I was like, this is over and over and over and over again. By the time I was done with Genesis, I got the message. So, it's important, I think it was important that the writer of Psalm 95 put the reminder that there are many, many other things that people seem to worship. And that's as true today as it was when it was written. So, we need to recognize, we need to be continually reminded. It needs to become one of the central reasons for our worship of God. And that is that He is the great King above all gods. He is to be set apart. So He's the rock of our salvation. He's the great King above all gods. In verse 4, God owns the mountain peaks and the depths of the earth. Let us not forget what God did. He took the void, and from it He created the heavens and the earth, and He created land and sea on the earth. You know, it was interesting because many of us went to Ayers Lake or Ayers Pond, I guess that's what we asked, yesterday, for the church picnic. We had a great time.